I struggle to remember a worse game that Oscar Bob has had, which is a worry because when he played for Norway in the international break, his international coach also said that's the worst game Oscar Bob's ever had for us. Like, that is the worst. The first half was the worst half he's ever played for us, and the second half was the second worst half.
Hello and welcome to the latest edition of the Talking City podcast with myself, Alex James, and Chief City writer Simon Bajkowski. The eagle-eyed of you amongst us will notice that we are not in the studio. The perils of half-term and days off and childcare commitments mean I'm recording this from my spare bedroom. Simon is recording this from somewhere. And
where would you guess?
It's hard to know where you are, actually. It doesn't overly look like a room in a house, if I'm being honest with you. But I'm guessing it is.
It is, yeah. It's the kitchen, actually.
It's the kitchen. Very nice.
Yeah,
very nice.
Yeah. The third kitchen, maybe.
Tea and toast on tap.
Kitchen in the east wing.
Well, we can get onto the wings in a minute, but we'll better kick off with a word from the sponsors NordVPN before we dive into everything Manchester City. So to get the best discount off your NordVPN plan, go to nordvpn.com/talkingcity. Our link will also give you 4 extra months on the 2-year plan. There's no risk with Nord's 30-day money-back guarantee, and the link is in the podcast episode description box. Right then, Simon, from your kitchen wing to the wings of Manchester City, or the winges of Manchester City, perhaps after the result at Villa Park yesterday. 9-game unbeaten run comes to an end, and it just looked like one of those days where once they went behind after a pretty poor first half performance, they kind of knocked on the door a little bit in the second half. But you got the feeling as the game wore on that that equaliser wasn't going to come, and the offside goal right at the end sort of summed it up.
Yes. It's hard. I think it's a hard game to digest. My take on it after reflection is that you did feel like nothing was going to come for City, but you kind of felt like nothing was going to come because it was one of those days, as opposed to, say, when they lost to Tottenham at home, when they went 2-0 down in the first half, and then they just looked absolutely rubbish. For the second half. Like, I thought they were okay in the second half. They were quite good. That they obviously had problems, and certain players obviously played pretty poorly or very poorly. But they were close to getting an equalising goal, and Marmoush was only just offside when he squared for Haaland at the end to tap in. So you always try and take Pep's temperature after the game as well, and he was very content, I would say, and sometimes that is a bit of a show, but I think he was all right with the performance, and I could see why. Yeah,
I think they had twice as many shots as Villa. They had more shots on target. They had more possession. They had more touches inside the opposition box. Like, all those kind of stats. The XG, I think, was higher for City. I'm not sure Villa's was much over 0.5 for what that means. So you can see where Pep's coming from. I just wonder whether, did he get the selection wrong? I mean, for me, if Nico Gonzalez can play half an hour, can he play 45 minutes from the start and perhaps give you a bit more of a platform to build from? Because City's midfield, they were played through so easily, so many times in that first half. After the sort of first 10 or 15 minutes where they were, it felt like only a matter of time before they were going to get in behind Villa in the first 10 minutes. But after that, they kind of lost their way.
Yeah, like Reinders didn't look good playing in the holder midfield role. But he's fourth choice for that position. And he wasn't helped at all by Bernardo Silva or Phil Foden in that first half, who weren't anywhere near the top of their game. I do think, I think it's an issue that Reinders started in the holder midfield role, but just because, how have you got yourself into a position where none of Rodri, Kovacic, or Gonzalez are able to start? Like, if Kovacic is better, then surely he should have had some game time or enough game time, because he started for Croatia during the international break. So, like, why is he still not able to start for City? And like you say, if Gonzalez was fit enough for the last half an hour to bring on, then maybe it was better for the solidity of the team and everything to keep him. I think there are some games where you can probably get away with Reinders, and like maybe Swansea away might be one, or even I don't know, but like a game where you expect to have a lot of possession, but a game like
Wolves at home, you can probably play
Reinders
in that position. You're going to dominate the ball, and everyone goes home a bit happier.
Yeah, but like we know that Reinders is not. He's not in there for his sort of physical. He's not in there to match Onana and Camara in the Villa midfield, and like nobody was able to match them, which is kind of why City looked a bit overrun in midfield, because they lost too many duels, they lost too many battles on the pitch, certainly in the first half, and Villa were good. Having said that, like I was also a bit weirded out that like I kept seeing footage on TV of the Villa set pieces coach, and I feel like there was a lot made of Villa done really well to score from a set piece, and I was like, does that count as a set piece goal? Because like at the end of the day, the right back has scored a worldie with his left foot. Like, I'm not sure anyone's planned for that. So
no, I think Matty Cash said after the game that it wasn't a that was in no way a planned move for a little move to take place on the left hand side and then feed him to fizz it into the corner.
Like I'm not sure we're giving Austin McPhee a pay rise because Matty Cash has done something that nobody expected. So like I think you could say, well, City didn't deserve anything from that game, but they have lost to, a freakishly good goal. And, nearly or had chances to score an equaliser. So it wasn't brilliant. They weren't brilliant, but also compared to last season when they were absolutely battered for 90 minutes and lucky to lose 2-1, lucky to lose 2-0 before Foden's late goal as well. So I thought they were pretty even with Villa.
Yeah, I don't think you could have, if it had been a draw, I don't think you could really have argued with that, because I'm trying to think now, Donnarumma didn't really have that many. He had the one where he pushed Sancho's shot back to him, which was his own doing anyway. That wasn't necessarily, and that was also not great from Nunes, I think, who Sancho somehow managed to wriggle past on the left. And I think they had one shot really well blocked by Diaz, was it, in the second half, Villa?
Yeah.
But I mean, Savinho had two shots blocked in the same attack, didn't he? The second one turned over his own bar from underneath his own bar by Torres, which could have gone anywhere. Obviously, they had the goal, or not the non-goal, from Haaland. There wasn't loads of clear-cut chances either way, and City probably had as many as Villa did. So I think I'm a bit with you. I think they got the selection wrong. I don't think that worked, particularly against a team with, when you got Morgan Rogers, Buendia when he was on the pitch, I thought was really bright. And McGinn, those kind of ball-carrying transitional midfielders in front of, as you said, the Onana and Kamara, who were just solid. That always looked a bit of a problem area for City with that team. But the second half, they penned Villa in. They were much brighter. I thought pretty much all the subs made a positive impact. And we might come on to Doku and maybe O'Reilly, and who were pretty unfortunate not to start, I would say. And the sort of who we need out on those wide positions, because I really like Oscar Bob, but he sort of flattered to deceive a bit yesterday. Savinho blows hot and cold, doesn't he? I'm not quite sure we know where we are with those two wide positions in terms of consistency every week, aside from maybe Doku.
I struggle to remember a worst game that Oscar Bob has had, which is a worry, because when he played for Norway in the international break, his international coach also said, that's the worst game Oscar Bob's ever had for us. That is the worst. The first half was the worst half he's ever played for us, and the second half was the second worst half. And you can brush off that, but he just didn't look incisive or like he was up for it. He's obviously at a physical disadvantage against some of those players, but he always is because of his stature. So you have to use kind of other attributes, and the ongoing battle is you have to be incisive and contribute to creating chances, and I don't think Bob did at all. Savinho must be one of the worst, I would say, and it's even more infuriating for people because it comes directly after arguably his best performance in midweek.
Well, that's Savinho all over, though, isn't it? And even that performance yesterday at Villa Park, he nearly scores, and he does.
Yeah,
you do feel like he's going to make something happen. It's just it might be 1 in 7, 8, 9, 10 dribbles or runs or actions that something does happen when he's.
Yeah, but there was a lot of good dribbles, but then the final ball was awful on every time, and you is it a runner's problem? Are the runners just not anticipating where he's going to play the ball? But when that happens 7 times in a half, you kind of think, it's he's just not picking out his men, and that is his job in the team. And that was a big part why City struggled to create anything, because they did really well in getting the ball out to their wingers, and then their wingers did the square root of 0.
Do you think? Doku sort of bought that a little bit more. It is easier coming on in a losing cause to look bright, isn't it? You'd be very disappointed if your subs came on and nothing really changed. Doku probably could have come on at half time for me, and he probably is the first choice in those wide positions, but it doesn't feel like we're quite certain who's going to play on the other side at the moment. And nobody's kind of put their hand up and said, I'm starting there every week. Would you kind of concur with that? Or
yeah, I think so. And I do think that Silva's been posted out there a bit to allow Foden to be inside. And Savinho, his game against Villarreal, it was on the right, so maybe he's better on the right. But then he, I just remember he came from Girona, and he'd spent all year playing on Girona, getting all these goals and assists, and then came and said, obviously I prefer to play on the right. And so I thought, but you should be able to play both. And they're kind of, all the wingers are a bit on a hiding to nothing, because they're coming up against the very recent memories of Leroy Sané and Raheem Sterling being 2 of the best wingers City fans have ever seen. However, the bar is high at City, and you have to rise to meet it. And City aren't going to challenge for the title if their wingers are good one every 3 or 4 games, and as bad as they were at Villa every 3 games.
Yeah, and I think just going further back in the team as well, Gvardiol struggled again at left back. That seems a bit strange as well. I know Nico O'Reilly had a knock, maybe he wasn't deemed fit enough to play 90, but when he's been in the form Nico O'Reilly's been in, and actually Gvardiol and Diaz have looked pretty solid in a centre-half pairing. But when Gvardiol's played at left-back this season, he's really struggled, I think. Really struggled.
Yeah. A lot of loose passes. There were a lot of loose passes in midweek, and a lot of loose passes again. And I know he didn't come on directly for him, but I thought City looked a lot better when Nico O'Reilly came on. It was just, he just looks far from his best, and it feels like last season took a lot out of him, and he obviously had the injury at the start of this year. And even just, I think he did an interview with the BBC, and they were like, should we pick you in FPL? And he was like, I wouldn't. And stuff like that. It doesn't feel like he is on top of his game. And I mean, that sounds silly because he came up with 2 assists in a week the other week, but it's just something's not quite there. And also, it wasn't happening for Stones yesterday, and Stones was so good in midweek, and then it just kind of it didn't work. It didn't work really, and I think the question from the game is, did it not work because City are not good enough or consistent enough to be title challengers? And so they will always have these issues where things just don't work. Or was it just an unfortunate one-off? And, you sort of put it to one side and say it was a product of the circumstances of this game, and they were still fairly good matching Villa. They've come a long way, and they can still challenge for the title. I think I'm leaning towards the latter, but the next 2 weeks are going to be pretty big now.
Yeah, I'm with you on the latter, but I would say the next 3 Premier League games either side of this international break will probably tell us definitively if City come through Bournemouth, Liverpool, and Newcastle away, with a reasonable return of points and performances, then I think justifiably they are going to therefore be in, they're going to be in the top 4 if they've got, say, 7 points from those 3 games. They're not going to be too far behind Arsenal. They're going to be a maximum of 8 points behind Arsenal if they took 7, for example. So that'll show you if they are still in title contention. And they've made a decent start in the Champions League. You feel like they're going to win one of those 2 home games against
Dortmund and Leverkusen.
You feel like they're going to win one of those.
At least one.
Yeah. And sort of that will help them to be in a position where they're kind of not going into the last 2 or 3 games like last season, where we were going into that after Christmas desperate to beat Bruges to even get into the playoff round. That will ease some of the burden. You'd back them to beat Swansea, obviously, in the Cup, then they're 3 games away from a trophy. So I do think the next sort of maybe month is crucial, really. And that Swansea game that's come at a good time as well, I would say, for your Cherkis and maybe a Kovacic to go in and get 90 minutes. And you would, a City team made up mainly of players who are on the bench at Villa should be swatting aside Swansea, who I don't think are pulling up many trees in the Championship.
Yeah. I think so. I think it's kind of like Pep's been saying for ages, like, oh, Swansea's the game where I can bring this player back and this player back and that player back. And I don't know whether it was almost a bit too cautious, or the hope was that they could sort of not coast, but get through these games, and then you play everyone that needs minutes against Swansea. But in actual fact, I just don't really get what Kovacic is doing there.
That's why I think that's fine in theory, isn't it? And I get that even for Cherki. I don't disagree necessarily. I mean, again, Cherki could have come on earlier yesterday, but Cherki's start against Swansea makes sense because City have got half a dozen other options to play in that role. But when you're down to, as you said, 4th choice in Reinders, in the middle of midfield, and you've got Kovacic, he's been in every squad, hasn't he, since the international break, and he played an hour for Croatia, I think. Albeit, I know it was only against Gibraltar, but he still played an hour.
Yeah,
and he's played half an hour, or however long, off the bench in midweek at Villarreal when Gonzalez went off. Just felt like to me, one of him or Gonzalez could have started the game, and the other one could have come on after 55 minutes. But I do accept that knows much more about.
But
his fitness and conditioning and tactics than I do.
Yeah. But I think it's one of those things where, like, Kovacic will be penciled in to play against Swansea and will have been for some time. But it's like, actually, it might have been. it's just a very strange situation because he was a player as well that many people looked at and sort of thought, why is City keeping him really when the big reshuffle is going and talk of interest from elsewhere, and it was like, oh no, we're keeping him. He's got this unfortunate injury that's out for summer, but we're keeping him. And then he comes back in the international break and plays for Croatia, and he's fit enough to be sent to Croatia in the first place. But then we've just basically seen, and he played 40 minutes in midweek when Gonzalez came off, but it was just like I thought it was a bit unfair on Reinders really to put him in that position for that game when it didn't look like it was going to suit him, and then it didn't suit him, and we don't know as much as Pep by any stretch of the imagination, but some things like that kind of everyone could see coming, and it happened. So it's just one of those things where you kind of like, not really sure why those things happened, but you would like to think that everyone gets games who needs games against Swansea, and that kind of like opens up another avenue for City. I think the interesting thing for Swansea will be like, just start Savinho and Bob again. Just say, look, you two were rubbish against Villa. Like, you need to turn it on against this team, or you're not starting this side of Christmas, that kind of thing. Or do you take them out and, let somebody else come in and show them how it's done almost?
I think, I don't know. I think you've got to start Marmoush, Cherky, Kovacic, probably Rico Lewis as well. And then, yes, I mean, is Marmoush going to be fit enough to play 90 minutes up front? Possibly not. Does Pep want to see any of the academy players there was loads of them involved at Huddersfield. Is there an opportunity to give them minutes, or is that a bit of an unnecessary risk? I know there's the Huskies and whoever kind of coming through the ranks, but it doesn't feel like this is a game where we're going to see 2 or 3 of those dropped in. It feels like more a game where we're going to see those squad players play, and like you say, Bob or
I think the one is Macassar, because I think Haaland may well get the night off, in which case Marmoush starts up front. But like you say, can he play 90 minutes? Is it easier to give him 60 and then bring Macassar on for an hour or the last 20 minutes, or Foden on if needed? I think that's probably more likely, but I do think it will be stacked much more full of players. And then there's also, which was quite curious yesterday, Ryan Ait-Nouri, who returned to the squad against Villarreal and then wasn't in the squad for Villa, and is clearly still working his way back from his injury. But sort of he needs to start playing, and his injury seems to have taken longer than people thought. Yeah,
same with Kushinov as well, who I feel like Kushinov was going to be not too long after or maybe fit after the October international break, and now you wouldn't put much money on him playing between now and the November international break. He seems to be behind the curve a little bit as well. So definitely areas to look at.
Yes. Yeah.
You touched on Haaland there. Obviously smashed into that post at, I don't know if I felt more for Haaland or the post when he slammed into it. Finished the game. Obviously it was a bit gingerly hobbling about for the last couple of minutes. No real concerns afterwards that might be anything more than you've just run into the post?
Yeah, I don't think so. I think he looked fine walking around afterwards and finishing the rest of the game. Pep sort of seemed a bit surprised. I think he got the question in his press conference and was kind of surprised it had been asked almost. Might have been a double bluff, but I think it seemed like he was he'll be fine. But like I say, I would have said before the Villa game, I don't expect he'll play at Swansea or even travel. And I think I would still, be even more of that mindset now. Just make sure he's fit for Bournemouth against Sunday, which we've always said City Bournemouth has a Super Sunday feel to it. We always knew that was why it was picked for 4:30 on a Sunday. Another big game to come after Swansea.
Well, yeah, it's title chasing Bournemouth.
Yeah.
Who, have proven a tough nut for City at times as well in the past. It's not far from a foregone conclusion, that game. Obviously, Bournemouth beat them on the South Coast last season. They were beating them in the FA Cup until the Nico O'Reilly change kind of turned that game.
Yeah, although both of those on the South Coast, I would say, Pep yesterday got asked, Villa have beaten you 3 times in the last 3 years here. And he was like, yep, and we beat them at home every year as well. It was like, it's not sort of this big hoodoo kind of thing. It was Kevin De Bruyne's last game at the Etihad, the game against Bournemouth, so there was plenty riding on it. But City were fairly convincing winners on the night.
And actually, now you've said that, I can't remember another occasion where Bournemouth have beaten City.
No,
if they even have. So yeah, ignore that. Bournemouth, of course, that was recency bias, where I was remembering the last 2.
Well, I think the thing is, though, as well, that like everything fell apart at Bournemouth last year, and that was seen as like the moment where Pep thought this squad is cooked, this is the end. And so that is like, I think Bournemouth's on the brain because of that, as well as like they're a really good team and currently in second place. But there's kind of like a psychological thing with Bournemouth just because of how bad City were last year when they lost them away from home.
That's kind of you to give me an out there, where you actually just exposed my lack of research or knowledge from further than 12 months ago.
Yes,
but yeah, another huge offering on Sunday. Obviously, before that, Swansea in the cup, which Simon will be at, and we will have all the sort of build up and Pep's press conference on Tuesday to look forward to that game, and you'll be able to catch all the match action as per usual on all of our channels, and the same again for obviously for Bournemouth on Sunday. I think we'll leave it there for this episode of the podcast. So thanks very much for watching, thanks for listening, and we will see you all soon.